All right, welcome in. It is Bears Nation Pod. It is Thursday, October 19th, and we have a real slop fest of a game to break down today. How much of the game we're actually going to talk about, I don't know, because I know there's a couple things else on the docket to talk about. It is all Bears football. It is all related to the Bears. Obviously, the quarterback situation, who the Raiders are going to be starting in this game, because that's still an unknown. And a couple things even related to the number one overall pick that I kind of want to bring up maybe towards the end of the episode to wrap things up as well, that I'm sure Kevin Lapka is going to take totally reasonably and with a cool head. But I digress. Let's get into it, though. Like I said, this is Bears Nation Podcast. Myself, Jake Hassan, as always, with Kevin Lapka, as always, brought to you by OnTap Sportsnet. And Kevin, this game is going to just be so ugly. This game is gonna suck, I think.
I'm kind of thinking about just, opening up a different tab here on the webpage, looking at tea times for noon on Sunday,
Don't lie to the people. Don't lie to you. You and your fandom will never allow you to do that. And even if you did somehow convince yourself to do that, you would absolutely have the phone up with the game on YouTube TV or whatever app to stream the game. Or maybe you'd have, the dulcet tones of Jeff Joniak on the radio call instead in the cart. I don't know. I do respect you trying to figure out a way to maybe get one more tea time in. 55 on Sunday as a high.
Come
not
on.
great, but not terrible.
You can play with that. And look,
Saturday's probably your day. I mean, it's the high as 62. I also want to try and squeeze one more in, but I digress. It's Bears Nation Podcast, not Jake and Kev Golf Podcast.
We'll get one in before the season ends. But yeah, man, I have zero interest in watching this game. Like, I know
it's going to be so gross.
I don't think at this moment, I'm sorry, I just don't think at this moment I can be convinced into buying into like the underlying Tyson Bagent miracle story. Like, don't get me wrong.
I disagree with that.
Really? I don't know.
Well, just because we've seen this in the NFL before, like quarterback change for 1 week, team buys in, rallies around, the one start, especially in this situation. This is going down narrative street a little bit, but, D2 undrafted rookie who comes in, the team rallies around him against a bad Raiders team as it is too. It's not like you're playing the Chiefs or the Eagles or the 49ers. You're playing a bad Raiders team that, is in the hunt, quote unquote, but they're still not great. And so to me, I think that this is a spot, like I said, you've seen in the NFL before where a new quarterback comes in or, the backup comes in, and just for 1 week, the team's able to rally around that. It's not unheard of. It's honestly kind of, I don't want to say normalized or common, but, it's not uncommon.
Yeah, but like the team rallies around Tyson Bagent, like it just wouldn't make sense. Like it would make sense.
Everything that you hear the players and the team say about him is and nothing but positive things. And I mean, they would say that anyway. They're not going to come out and say this guy sucks or he's a bad teammate. But I mean, even this was in the preseason. This was in the summer. That, oh yeah, this kid's awesome. Like, he's great to be around. He's a learner. He's a grinder. Like, that's just why I kind of think this isn't, PJ Walker. Like we've been hearing good things about Tyson Bagent's, character for months now, for 4 or 5 months.
It's just like, I mean, what's the point? Like, sure, fine. But like, there's not really any scenario where that occurring is a good, I guess it's not a good or bad thing. But like,
well, you also have to consider. I mean, we've talked about on this show before. Guys are playing for the next contracts. Guys want to perform well.
Sure, and I'm not saying these guys aren't going to play and not going to try. Like these guys are going to bust their ass every single game. The Bears have no incentive to lose out. They don't have an incentive to tank. The coaching staff doesn't have an incentive to tank. So actually, I implore you, if you're somebody in Survivor who's like, oh, lock, take the Las Vegas Raiders against Tyson Bagent, like if Matt Eberflus can't afford to lose out.
Correct.
If he has any hope of keeping his job. A lot of these players, Darnell Mooney, Jalen Johnson, who are hoping for contract extensions and haven't gotten them, cannot afford to just roll over and die against bad teams. And yeah, we'll talk about the trade possibilities for those two players, specifically Jalen Johnson, here in the next couple of minutes. But I don't think, back to the Tyson Bagent thing. Let's root for the kid, right? He's a starting quarterback on Sunday. Let's root for the kid. But there's no scenario where like this works out and Tyson Bagent is a part of the plan going forward. And I honestly am fearful of this. I think this is why I'm sort of hesitant to like be all in. We saw Matt Eberflus a couple days ago say regarding Tyson Bagent, we're going to play to the strengths of the quarterback. He said that specifically in a quote.
Sure. We've heard that before, though.
We haven't heard that before when it comes to Justin Fields. We haven't.
We have.
I don't know. Okay, but that we can hear it all we want. But from what we know from last year in the first 5 games of this season, the last thing that they were doing for a majority of it was playing to the strengths of their quarterback. So here's
part of this year too.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I'm fearful that for some reason, and we always had this potential idea that maybe they never liked Justin Fields all that much. They never drafted, not collusion, but they didn't draft the guy. This is the whole line of thinking as far as what's going to happen in the future, right? At the end of this year. My fear is this. They are going to give Tyson Bagent more of an opportunity, play more to his strengths. He's going to look better because of that. And all of a sudden, within a matter of 2 weeks, Justin Fields has become a major scapegoat. He's going to get run out of this town. They're going to do whatever they can to get him out of here. And who knows, that might have happened anyway. Tyson Bagent's going to look like some sort of hero. And the whole thing is going to be messed up because of that. And it needs to be a realization that, no, you cannot make Justin Fields a scapegoat. The coaching staff is the problem here. The coaching staff needs to go. And I'm just fearful of tailoring to the strengths of the quarterback. Tyson Bagent looks good. Hey, look what we did with this undrafted D2 rookie from Shepherd, who a year ago was playing against, guys who are working at Walmart right now.
Colorado, and then Colorado School of Mines.
School of the what? Yeah, what?
I didn't even know that was a thing.
I didn't know that was a thing either. So they're going to use that as leverage at the end of the year exit interviews to Ryan Poles and Kevin Warren and say, I mean, yeah, we only won 3 or 4 games this year. But look what we did with this D2 kid from Shepherd University that no one gave a chance to. We turned into somewhat of a thing. Keep us around. Well, if we can do it with Tyson Bagent, we can do it with the other guy we drafted, Caleb Williams or Drake May. I guarantee you they're going to pitch that, and I am scared as hell of some potential positivity coming out of the next. And I don't want to root against Tyson Bagent. Like, that's not what I'm doing here.
Right, you're right.
But I fear, as a rational, which rarely I can be, a rational viewer of this team, that he is going to have moderate success in the coming weeks, and they're going to be able to use that as leverage and as a chip and their negotiating tactics at the end of the year to say, hey, keep us around.
So I see where you're coming from completely. I don't think 2 wins would be able to do that. I don't even think 3 wins. Like, let's say you beat the Raiders and let's say you beat the Panthers.
I hope so.
I don't think that's doing it. Because even if you say that, oh, look, we got 2 wins with this undrafted D2 kid, the issue still remains that it was the Raiders who are likely to miss the playoffs and have Josh McDaniels as their head coach and some combination of Brian Hoyer or Aidan O'Connell or both. And then the Panthers, possibly. Let's just throw them out there as a scapegoat. Or maybe you win against the Vikings if they trade Kirk Cousins at the end of the year or, something like that. I just don't think that in those scenarios, that's enough to keep your job. They would have to win 5, 6 games, from now, on top of that. So that you end with 6 or 7 wins to keep that job, and that's assuming Fields is going to be out the rest of the year. I get what you're saying. This has been your thing the entire year, that you're afraid Justin Fields becomes the scapegoat. I think that unless this coaching staff wins 5 or 6 more games this year, that they're done. They're cooked. And the part of that too is, even if you want to say that they're competent enough to do that, which they're not, the state of the team is not great. You're getting some guys on defense back fine. The offensive line is still in shambles. Even if Braxton Jones comes back next week, because it doesn't seem like he's coming back this week, that's going to take him time to get up to speed. You still have no idea what's going on in the interior. Nate Davis continues to be perpetually injured. You don't even know what you're going to do at center right now. Doug Kramer's taking first team snaps at practice. And as much as I love Doug Kramer as an Illinois guy, he's still a 6th round pick who has not played really. 7th round pick who has played all of 3 snaps in NFL action. It's just, I think where the state of the team outside of the quarterback is still so bad that you're just not in a good spot to win 5, 6, even 4 games. Maybe you stumble, you fall ass backwards into a win this week because the team rallies around the second bubble, the Division 2 undrafted rookie. Maybe they rally around him for 1 week, but then after that, do you really think you're beating the Lions? You really think you're beating the Falcons?
No.
Do you really like that? So that's my thing. Like, I don't think 1 win, I don't think 2 wins even is going to be enough for Matt Eberflus and this coaching staff to say, yeah, you should keep us. Like, I think I think they're cooked regardless. I think everything else that happens from now on, and let's assume that Justin Fields does not play another game this year. Like, everything else is just guys trying to earn their next contract. Darnell Mooney, Jalen Johnson, all the guys on 1-year deals. And like I said, and maybe this is our segue to get into this, a couple of these guys are going to get traded. The Bears did not hesitate after winning a game, after winning the New England game. Robert Quinn was out the door 2 days later. Roquan Smith was out the door a week after that. Like, wins do not equate to Ryan Poles saying, all right, let's keep running this back. This is great. And at some point, like, you have to start prioritizing the short term for the long term. That's not now, because you don't have the quarterback, especially while Justin Fields is hurt. You might not have him in general, and you sure as hell don't have the coaching staff. So ipso facto, we're looking to next year at the earliest. And you're assuming that you're going to have your quarterback then, hopefully, whether that's Caleb Williams, whether that's Drake May, whether that's JJ McCarthy, I don't know, but it's going to be one of those 3 guys. And maybe Shedeur Sanders sneaks his way into that conversation too, but unlikely. So that all being said, and that all being taken into account, I get where your fear is coming from. I just don't think we're at a point right now where we have to worry about that. Like I said on Monday, we're a third into the season. Like, we as Bears fans and as people that talk about the Bears and as an organization, the Bears are so far up shit's creek right now that I just don't think it matters. Okay, great. You beat the Raiders. They suck. They're bad.
They're not that bad. They're 3-3 right now. And they have
Kevin, do you really look at the Las Vegas Raiders and say, like, that's a team that can win a playoff game? Do you really look at them and say that's a playoff team? They're a bad team. They could be a team that, like, I view the Raiders as, like, maybe they get lucky and they get to 8 wins. Maybe. But, like, do you really think they're a good team? Does anyone? Go ask 10 people on the street. You think any of them are going to say, any casual football fan, they're going to say the Raiders are a good team?
No, but you can use that as, hey, they're 3-3 at the time, and we beat them. That's what they'll do in that fucking building, Jake. That is what they do, man. That is what they're
even if the Raiders end up 6-11.
They'll say, hey, look at what was stacked against us. I don't care if that was in a 6-11.
But again, I don't think we
lost our starting quarterback.
What if this is the only other game you win all year?
I mean, who knows? It's hypotheticals, right? But just in general, like, rallying around this kid. Oh, and look how we brought the team together. And Justin Fields he just couldn't do it. We had all the pieces, and it just was on him to not rally the team. Like, I'm with you that I don't think this coaching staff will last. I totally agree. I've been saying that from the jump. I set the date after week 2 or 3 that lost the game after the Chargers, they had to get fired. And I'm going to hold true to that because I can't roll it back now. But, like, there is a little bit of fear for me that this is what this organization does. I don't know if they have the balls and the strength to do it. And they're going to find any which way they can to keep these guys around. And just that part scares me a little bit. So, who knows? This is a terrible Raiders defense, a terrible Raiders rush defense, which favors the Bears. Their pass defense actually isn't that bad. They're actually top 10 in opponent pass yards per game allowed, which is not good news for Tyson Bagent. Especially with Max Crosby on the other side of the field. It's really not good news for Tyson Bagent, especially because we don't have a center and we have Larry Borum at left tackle, and we don't have Nate Davis. And yeah, that front 4 is not too bad. So yes, not a good recipe. Like, actually, if we're going into a game breakdown, like, I know people are going to say, oh, well, what an opponent for the Bears to face for Tyson Bagent's first game. Like, luckily they didn't get the Lions. No. Like, there are some threats on this Raiders team coming at you, especially, with Max Crosby in that front 4, with a guy like Tyson Bagent, who we saw what happened when he was under a little bit of duress in the end of last week's game against Minnesota. You have the underthrown pick on his back foot. You have, the fumble where he doesn't really recognize the guy coming from behind him, which is, like, tough play on him. But This isn't the best opponent for the Chicago Bears. Although the Raiders are, widely viewed as a bad team, although they're 3-3, like I'd much rather be playing the Minnesota Vikings again or, the Cardinals, right? Like this is not the best matchup. Tyree Wilson, I forgot about him. First round draft pick, top 10 draft pick for the Raiders.
He's
who's just coming into his own.
Year.
Yeah, he has done Zippo, which is surprising because of his projectables out of the draft, but he's still a guy that can wreak havoc. Look, I am not expecting anything much from Tyson Bagent, but I just know that, and maybe it's not within the organization, right? Maybe it's not within the organization. Maybe they're smarter than that, but I don't want to have to deal with people around this franchise if the Bears were to come to a win and say, hey, Tyson Bagent might have had 3 interceptions on Sunday. He might have had 120 yards passing, but you know what Tyson Bagent knows how to do? He knows how to win.
Yeah.
And Justin Fields has had all these games with great stats, but he doesn't know how to win. And here comes, the D2 guy who wasn't supposed to be anything, and he's bringing up the energy, and he knows how to he has more positive energy in interviews than Justin Fields does. And impress.
Like nobody actually evaluates football is gonna say that unless the Bears win like 6 in a row. Like after, yes, people on the street, like Joe Public's gonna say that. But like nobody who actually evaluates football, like, yeah, all the callers on the score on an ESPN 1000 are going to say that. But like nobody who again, unless the Bears win like 6 in a row and those stats continue to happen where Tyson Bagent is like not wowing anybody, but they're somehow winning games, then maybe that happens. But if they win one game against the Raiders, who, yes, they're 3-3. Let's go through who they've beaten. The Patriots, who are terrible. The Broncos, who are also terrible. And then the Green Bay Packers, who are like in this weird limbo where they're figuring out their first year quarterback. They're pretty bad. So like, yeah, they're 3-3. Look who they beat. Like, I know if they beat the Bears this week and they're 4-3, people are going to look at them and say, yeah, the Raiders, look out for them in the playoffs.
Look, wins are not a QB stat, right? We know this. Anyone who, evaluates the NFL, evaluates teams, like knows that wins pretty much aren't a QB stat. But what they do is they help absolve you of mistakes made throughout the game. They do give a better look on your previous game. Like you talk about the Green Bay Packers, for example. Jordan Love's stats for the first 3 games of the season, incredibly pedestrian. He had a decent game against the Bears, but for the most part, really pedestrian. The offense wasn't scoring a ton of points and weren't explosive. But at that point, they were 2-1. And everyone was like, oh, Jordan Love, top 15 quarterback. Blah, blah, blah. You want to know why? Because they won games, right? It gives you a better perspective on the player if they win the game in the moment. If you were to go back and look at a player's career as a whole and see that, hey, this guy was consistently a 4,000, 500,000 yard passer, but he was winning 7 to 8 games a season, then wins aren't a QB stat in that sense. But on a week-to-week basis and the way that a quarterback's performance is perceived, wins do help. And that's why I'm just a little bit fearful because, hey, whether you like it or not, when you look at the Bears defense, this defense played really well against Minnesota. They're getting healthier. You have guys like Yannick Ngakoue, who was a late free agent signing, coming into his own. You have guys maybe understanding, the Tampa 2 system the Chicago Bears run and fitting in and slotting in. And I'm not saying that the Bears are going to be, a top 15 defense for the rest of the year, but you have guys like Irvon Dexter, who is a rookie who needed development, who's looking to be, more of a contributor. Zach Pickens has really done nothing. I don't expect his, performance to have an uptick, but you look at a defense that may be coming into its own and a defense that's not going to allow, 35 points per game, which it was allowing the last 14 games with Justin Fields, then you start to see the Bears win games 21-17 or 21-20 or 24-23 with Tyson Bagent. And although, and maybe because they're relying mostly on the run, and I just like, even if they're not winning games, even if they're closer games, right? Like, 17-16 or 24-20. And hey, Tyson Bagent kept it in the game and all these different things. Like those are just the things that I know are going to happen. And everyone's aware of those things, and it's something I don't want to deal with. And it's something that I'm afraid will feed into, and I'm hoping it doesn't, but I'm afraid it does bleed into the organization. And, we really don't know. Again, the whole problem with this is we don't know the way Ryan Poles feels about Matt Eberflus, the way Ryan Poles feels about Justin Fields. We don't know the way they feel about Tyson Bagent. We don't know the way Kevin Warren feels about all of those guys and all of those things. We don't know the influence he has on all these decisions. Like, it's very unknown what the Chicago Bears feel right now amongst their quarterbacks, amongst their coaching staff. And because of that, it gives me the fear that they could be tricked into believing anything at this point, because there's so many options on the table for how they proceed in the future. And because of that, they have to they're forced to be open to a lot of different opportunities and options as to how to operate this team and what to do at the end of the year. So that is the fact of the matter. Like, there is no at this moment, October 19th, there is no clear-cut decision for this. I mean, there is in our eyes, but for them, there's no clear-cut decision on what this organization should do. And even for us, it's not clear. I have a different opinion on what we should do at the end than you, right? And it all depends on what happens. But because there's 12 games left, 11. I just went all over the map. 11 games left. So many different combinations, possibilities, iterations of things can happen. And you would be naive if you want to consider the one possibility that Tyson Bagent, quote unquote, rallies the crowd, rallies the team. They win a couple games, and the Bears organization is tricked into thinking things that they shouldn't.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's a world where that happens. To wrap this conversation, then we'll get into actual game stuff. Like, let me just throw this at you really quick. Again, and we've talked about this before, Ryan Poles didn't get to do the whole coach search. He didn't get to go through all those meetings. He didn't get to vet every candidate.
They said
he was hired, and then 2 days later, they hired Matt Eberflus. Ryan Poles was hired to be the GM. 2 days later, Matt Eberflus was fired. He was there for the final round. Ryan Poles was there for the final group of candidates. He wasn't there from the beginning where they cast this wide net and there were, dozens, double-digit amount of candidates for this head coaching job. They were going through all these meetings. They had the panel, and then Ryan Poles gets hired. All right, here's a list of 3 guys. This is who you get to choose from. So Ryan Poles now is likely going to be 2 years into the job and have somewhere from 4 to 6 wins to show for it. And, had the whole press go, we're going to take the North, never get it back. We're going to build this team up. We all know how that goes. The clips have been surfacing on the internet, various places on the internet. So Ryan Poles is going to start feeling the heat as well. If he goes through a third year where he only gets 2 to 3 wins, what do you think his job security is? So for Ryan Poles wanting to keep his job as well, you get to the end of this year, and let's say you only win 3 games, 2 to 3, maybe even 4 if you're lucky. And he comes to the end of the year and says, all right, I have 7 wins 2 years into this. I'm 7 and 27. That's something where you're like, yeah, let's run it back with the coaching staff. When you have an opportunity to take a quarterback of your choice at the top of the draft and potentially pair him with Marvin Harrison Jr., you're going to say, yeah, I can possibly risk, another 3-win season for my job security. I just think that's another angle to view it. I think that's another way that you can look at this, because Ryan Poles is going to look out for himself too in his exit interviews for the year with Kevin Warren or the McCaskies or whoever it might be. So that's just another way that I think is a bullet point for there's no way this coaching staff comes back, even if they win 2 more games this year. I think it's just everybody's got their nail in the coffin, or at least close enough at this point, is my only thing. All right, let's get into actual game stuff here. Yep. It is the Raiders. They are 3-3, but like I said, they beat the Patriots, the Packers, and the Broncos. Yuck. And you have an opportunity to get your second win behind the undrafted rookie who, by all accounts, there's all these videos of his dad coming out, but like arm wrestling Tom Pelissero at the Senior Bowl, and Tyson Bagent doing was it Lose Yourself or something? I forget. He was doing karaoke at the bar, and there was a wild video. It was very kind of cringy, honestly, in my opinion, but that's neither near nor there. But anyway, so like you said, Raiders have a couple playmakers on their defense. Max Crosby obviously being the number one there, a guy who's been in defensive player of the year conversation at the very least. And with an offensive line that is kind of still a paper bag, basically. And I just think that regardless, we just did this whole thing on Tyson Bagent. What if he wins these games? I think he's in for a bad time. I think he's in for a bad time on Sunday. And, good luck with a center that you don't even know if can snap the ball properly. And now here's Max Crosby. Good luck.
Yeah.
Have fun with that.
It's not a recipe for success for the
No,
Chicago
it
Bears.
sure
That's
isn't.
why I said that. And that's why I said this is. I know everyone's like kind of saying, oh, Tyson Bagent's opportunity against the bad Raiders team with Aidan O'Connell. No, like this is not. This is like Max Crosby leads the league in pressures. Like he leads the league in pressures. And like sure, maybe the game plan is to get the ball out quick with Tyson Bagent and yada yada yada. But like you're not going to get down the field and score on this team consistently with Tyson Bagent. You're just not. And like maybe Roschon Johnson has a breakout game, and the run blocking has been good this year. And we assume Roschon's going to play, still in concussion protocol. It would be a pretty, a lot of guys have been coming back within the week of concussion protocol. This is going to be 2 weeks for him, so we expect him to play. But if not, it'll be a Deonta Foreman again, who ran the ball okay, but is obviously older and slower than Roschon Johnson is. But yes, this is a Raiders defense that gets after the quarterback. Sure, there's 21st in sack percentage, and they don't take the ball away a ton, but they really haven't allowed a ton of big plays. And yeah, they haven't played a lot of opponents who, have explosive offenses, and the Steelers and the Patriots and whatnot. And the one team that they kind of play that doesn't have explosive offense, and the Bills, they lost 38-10. But guess what? Right now with Tyson Bagent, the Bears don't have an explosive offense either. And I don't think that the game plan is to, utilize explosive plays to beat this Raiders defense. If you are Luke Getsy and Matt Eberflus, there is no doubt in my mind that they've been in that meeting room for the past 3 days saying, oh, we are grounding and pounding the hell out of this team. We know the Raiders don't have a great rush defense. We know they have, big playmakers up front and a decent pass defense. But you look at their rush defense, they're 21st in opponent rush yards per game, allowing 121.7. They face the 18th most rushes in the league, and they're 21st in opponent yards per rush and 4.3. So it's not a terrible rush defense, but it's definitely below average. And I think they're looking at this and saying, hey, we are going to control the clock. We're going to get our D2 Shepherd quarterback Tyson Bagent comfortable and acclimated, and we're going to run Roschon Johnson in the ground. Maybe we'll do some design runs with Tyson Bagent because he can run the ball a little bit. They'll do whatever they can to move down the field, but they are not going to let Tyson Bagent drop back in shotgun, especially with the snapping issues, and throw the ball down the field. And again, that's where I get worried, Jake, when you talk about the perception of the two quarterbacks and the comparisons that are going to be made between Justin Fields and Tyson Bagent because of the way this has shaken out. The game plan at the end of the Vikings game was Tyson Bagent, get the ball out quick, right? You're a rookie quarterback. We're going to run, flat routes and quick out routes with DJ Moore. Just get the ball in their hands and see what it can happen. And he was applauded for that. Look how fast Tyson Bagent got the ball out because they're running short flat routes and they're one read plays to those guys. Those things are not being designed for Justin Fields for whatever reason, but don't look at that after this week and say, wow, Tyson Bagent, this undrafted rookie, already processes defenses better and gets the ball out quicker than Justin Fields. If you make that conclusion, you're a knucklehead and you're dumb and you're just an idiot. So that's where
the
we're at
vitriol
with
which you're a knucklehead was said. It's really funny.
That's where we're at, man.
No, I do agree with you. I think that even if the Bears do win this game, context matters. You have to see how, don't just look at a box score and see, Tyson Bagent 10 for 12, 127 yards and a W, context matters. If they run the ball 37 times, right. If they run the ball 37 times and, and the throw chart comes out like it does every week for every Bears quarterback and nobody's running farther than 5 yards down the field, context matters. We've said that a lot on the show in the past year. Context matters. You can't just blindly take things like the box score or like a win at face value. It doesn't mean take the Broncos loss, for example. Yeah, there was a horrendous loss and been very indicative of the coaching staff. But then you look and see that the offense then for those first 3 quarters, at least, gave you hope. And then the Commanders game happened. Obviously, whatever. We're getting down a rabbit hole now, but context matters is basically what I'm getting at. Like Kevin said, don't be a knucklehead. Don't just take these things at, oh, well, he won. All right, well, that's the guy. Take other things into account when you're evaluating how this game goes, especially if in some, world they do win. All right. Real quick, let's do our bold predictions, our game prediction. Kevin, once again, hot streak continues for the bold predictions. The Tremaine Edmonds interception. I mean, Kevin's reign of terror just continues. We'll throw out the quarterback stats that we had predicted because injury obviously took a huge account into that, and Justin Fields left the game with injury, and not even close to anything that we predicted as far as that goes. So, Kevin, do you have a bold prediction for us this week, really quick?
Yeah, I do. I think the Bears score some points in this game, and by some, you'll see what I mean in the prediction. But I think it comes via special teams. I think Velus Jones Jr., you saw him last week. I think Bears scores. He was very aggressive. He didn't have great returns. I mean, he was getting above 25 yards. It was decent. But he's very aggressive, right? Like the first couple of weeks, you saw him not take balls back, even that were a couple yards deep in the end zone. This time, he was like, "Fuck it, we ball, taking the ball, taking it wherever he can." The Raiders special teams is Rich Bisaccia still over there? I have no idea.
No, he's in Green Bay now.
Right, Bisaccia's in Green Bay. Because Bisaccia was the interim head coach for the Raiders. That's
and the
why
Raiders players wanted him to be retained.
Right. That whole thing.
And they went and got Josh McDaniels.
I don't have stats here on the Raiders special teams. I no. But sorry for my lack. So I don't want you to if you're listening to this, I don't want you to question our lack of commitment on the podcast, because we are sitting here breaking down Tyson Bagent versus
it
is a fake football game. This game should be relegated to this XFL for 1 week.
This game should be played at like midnight on Saturday. This game should be played with like Pac-12 after dark games.
Yeah.
That'd be kind of cool.
So yeah, don't question our commitment. Sorry, I didn't look up the Raiders special teams, but yeah, Velus Jones returns a TD touchdown. I don't know what else is there to bold predict, but I actually do feel pretty good about that one, and I'm on a hot streak. So, tail me on Velus Jones anytime touchdown score.
Oh man, is that even listed? That'd be crazy.
Plus 4,500,
45-1 for an anytime touchdown would be nuts. Yeah, I mean, I also struggled with a bold prediction for this week just because it's like it's so hard to say. So you know what? With the trade deadline coming up, and then this will segue into our game predictions and then our trade analysis, quote unquote, with 2 weeks to go to the deadline. I'm going to say that Darnell Mooney has 70 yards and a touchdown this week, and starts to raise his trade value as the deadline approaches. So I'll say Darnell Mooney, I guess big game by his standards because he's been mostly non-existent. All right, Kevin, game prediction, score, result. What do you got?
Well, because I bold predicted Velus Jones Jr. to score a touchdown, I think the Bears lose this game 21-13. And I think their only offensive score is the special teams touchdown.
Honestly, that's not bad. That's a very Jake-coded score.
Yeah, I know the Bears scored last week against Minnesota with Tyson Bagent in there, and they had a decent drive. I don't know, man. I really just don't think this offense is equipped to do anything against this Raiders defense. Maybe, especially if Roschon Johnson is out. If Roschon is in, and I know one running back shouldn't make a lot of difference, but maybe they do get down the field a little bit more because he's more explosive. But if you have Deonta Foreman again, and with this offensive line, the way it's constructed, and we don't even know the way it's constructed, I don't see the Bears scoring more than 13 points in this game. I think they lose 21-13.
All right. I think that something really stupid is going to happen. I actually think the Bears are going to win this game. And it's going to be really gross. And I'm going to say that the Bears win this game 13. I'm going to align with you on that.
Oh my God.
13-9, I think, is the Bears win this game.
Oh God.
I think it's just an absolute slop fest of a game. Disgusting all around. And I think that it's just gross all around.
Oh, and oh my God. And okay. I don't know. Like, let's be honest. Are you rooting for a win on Sunday? Like, are we there yet?
I'm not
like,
rooting
I don't
for
want
a
to
win, but it's just, I just think it's going to be really stupid. I just think it's going to be really stupid. So,
okay. That's all I have on the game. I have nothing.
All right, you want to do a couple minutes on trade stuff?
Let's do a couple minutes on trade stuff.
All right, let's do a couple.
Tell the tone of our voices here. This is just all-time low.
All right. I actually think that we are going to see some trades, much like last year. Ryan Poles is not afraid of trading some of these guys. And so I think that even regardless win, loss, whatever happens Sunday, I think we're going to start seeing people go out the door. And I think that at the top of that list, obviously, is Jalen Johnson. He's a corner that has shown he can put people on an island. He's shown he can take receivers out of the game. I think over the last 2 years, I think it is, or maybe even over the span of his career, I forget. But he allows a quarterback rating of 60. 60. Like, that's really good. He doesn't have the interceptions. He doesn't have the takeaways, but he's been undeniably and objectively a very, very good, above average, even bordering elite corner in the NFL. And I think that especially with teams with Super Bowl aspirations, that's going to be very attractive. Whether that's the Eagles who are dealing with injuries, whether that's, the Dolphins who are welcoming Jalen Ramsey back, and maybe that's attractive to them to pair Ramsey with Johnson, something like that. I think there's going to be a team that's willing to give up a second round pick for Jalen Johnson.
I agree that is the case. However, I don't think the Bears should make that deal. I understand at the current state of the team, I'd rather keep Jalen Johnson.
I agree with that.
State of the team.
I agree that if you have the choice,
you agree.
Him. I agree that you should keep him, but I just think that
why would you not have the choice?
Well, I think that because we haven't heard any progress in the last year plus, and also look at how Ryan Poles drafted. He drafted 2 corners in the last draft, and he drafted Kyler Gordon before that. I think the writing's kind of on the wall here is all.
Yeah, I mean, the draft tendencies do indicate something, but just real quick before we wrap, I'll just say this. I understand it's so easy to look at the state of the team and be like, well, if you're going to bottom out again and you're going to kind of restart this rebuild or whatever it may be, it makes so much sense to just unload your assets, especially for guys who, are due for contract extension, who might not get signed to the team anyway. But that's just not how good teams operate. At some point you have, we've been doing this for so long, and maybe not so long, but at least the past couple of years. And at some point you have to keep good guys around. And at some point it's not going to help you if you're Ryan Poles to keep dealing these guys away and for them to keep playing well for their second teams. And he has to be cognizant of that because it's been happening. It's happening with Khalil Mack. It's happening with Roquan Smith. It's happening, with all these other guys that he's let go of, either maybe not trade, but let go of, and like Dave Montgomery, not resign. And I think you're going to see the same thing happen with Jalen Johnson. He's a great locker room guy. Everyone looks up to him as a mentor. Sign him before your contract at the end of the year. Keep him around. You keep good guys around. You keep good players around. You don't have to unload everything.
So let me ask you this, because I do agree there's value in keeping elite corners around. Would you consider that, if Darnell Mooney got traded, would that be in that same vein to you? Or would that be as okay, this is an asset that isn't necessarily pivotal and you can afford to get rid of, or not get rid of? That sounds too mean, I guess. But this is an asset you can afford to, trade for draft capital.
Darnell Mooney is more expendable than Jalen Johnson.
I agree. Expendable. Thank you. That's the word I was looking. I agree with that completely, especially if you're going to have a shot at Marvin Harrison. So we're aligned on that. I agree. I think you should try to keep Jalen Johnson. I just am not sure that that's what's going to happen, especially given how Poles has drafted. How old is Jalen Johnson? He is 20. Oh my God, he's only 24.
24.
Oh yeah. I mean, that's somebody you should definitely try to keep them, but not my decision. So, all right. Well, that does it for this episode of Bears Nation podcast. This was our game prediction episode, but we did a lot of a quarterback and coaching breakdown and a little bit of trade stuff for you guys too, with a game prediction sprinkled in, if you will. So for myself, for Kevin, this has been Bears Nation podcast. Thank you to listeners, the viewers. You guys are the best. We appreciate you. We'll be back on Monday to recap everything that we saw on Sunday in this absolute slop that is going to be an NFL game. But we'll be here because that's what we do for you guys. You guys are the best. Appreciate you. We'll see you on Monday. And as always, bear down.